Welcome, everyone. In Lion, we begin our sessions with breath, in silence, and with spirit. And if we could take 3 deep breaths just to ground ourselves, I'll then pour libations in the Yoruba West African tradition. Breathe in. And then breathe out. Breathe in again. And breathe out. I call upon all our ancestors, all those whose shoulders we stand upon, all those whose blood runs through our veins. Ashe. I call upon those in our community, those who have fought for justice and equality and equity, those who continue to support us in life. Ashe. I ask that Spirit takes this water and make it a river of our lives. I don't know where this river is flowing to, but I do know that you will uphold this water and join it with other great rivers out there, so our lives may flow in a much more harmonious way. Ashe, Ashe, Asheo. And Asheo means so be it. So today we're going to talk about the real issues that are impacting us as Black people, as African heritage people, as people of color. All right, we are going to the roots. We are uprooting the causes of that cause oppression in our food system. We are going to uproot those things that make it difficult for us as people of color in the West or in previous colonized places to actually farm, to actually grow, to actually eat. We are going to uproot those things. And then when we uproot those things, we are going to begin that healing and build some solidarity amongst each other. I always ask, can you see us? Can you see us? Can you see that we are living in 2 worlds? Can you see that we have become the most marginalized in this world? Can you see that the structural inequalities, the oppression and violence of hundreds, if not thousands of years are impacting us deeply? I carry within my genes, as so many of us do, the remnants of that violence, and violence of slavery, and violence of indentureship, right? And the current violence that our peoples experience across the world, right? We belong, but then we do not belong. We feed people, yet we go hungry. You know, our children are immortalized as in face of hunger, pot-bellied crying, flies around them with empty bowls. And our foodways and cultures are eroticized or relegated to the realm of unworthiness. Can you see us? Can you hear us? with Black Lives Matter earlier in this year, you know, it's like a black light was shone on everything. Centuries of our pain and our anger just spew across the world. And it was like sleeping eyes were suddenly open. We have roots of oppression buried deep in legacies of colonialism and empire. And these are replicated in modern day institutions of the police and prison industrial complex, the hunger industrial complex. All these are designed to oppress, suppress, and dehumanize us, to extract from us, to feed what could only be described as greed, and to prop up whiteness as supreme. And this session is not about making anyone feeling guilty. This is about the systems of oppression that we need to uproot, disrupt, dismantle, so that we can create new. This is not about building back better. No, this is about justice. This is about healing and repair. Right? This is about us going forward from a place of heart with joy and love and respect and honor for each other, for the earth, for the elements. This is what this session is about. And I'm going to bring in Josina Calliste, all right, my dear friend and co-conspirator, and the co-founder of Land in Our Names.
Thank you so much, Dee. It's an honour and a joy to work alongside you. As Dee mentioned, I co-founded Land in Our Names about 18 months ago, and we are a Black-led collective which are using a reparative justice framework, so really thinking about how we can heal and repair from the trauma of colonialism, disconnect from the land, and we exist because of the vast land inequalities in Britain, but also worldwide. We exist because of food apartheid, which affects our communities, and the whiteness of the horticulture, agriculture, and environmental sectors, which affect so many aspects of our lives without us really knowing, without the mechanisms of those inequalities really being seen. But we're also here to uplift and celebrate the network of growers that has really mushroomed over the past year since the last ORFC. So if Tech could pull up our slides, and we're going to have a chat through some of the events and activities of the last year. So thank you for that grounding, Dee. It's really important to remember our ancestors and elders who've been growing and farming in the ways that we're trying to emulate and recreate now. Racial justice at the roots. Last year, just after the ORFC, we held a caucus. And caucus is often, it gets used in a sort of American political context, but I was trying to find the etymology of the word. It's apparently Algonquian, Native American group, tribe. And I've been told that it means loud noise. And I really liked that because, you know, we wanted to make a loud noise. We were like coming together for the first time, a group of over 50 Black and brown food growers, aspiring farmers, people who are interested in changing their relationship with the earth. But apparently the word may also have come from a word meaning elders, advisors, like to commune with your elders. And I love that too, because that's so much an important part of what we're doing and what we want to do. And we were at Willowbrook Farm, which is beautiful space and has always been an inspiration for showing how a family can farm according to their faith, in accordance, with their beliefs around halal and tayyib farming. And yeah, I want to shout out to them for being a brilliant venue and support for us in the first big event that we did, and the other people who are farming according to these practices. So there's other halal farmers in Wales, right? I can't remember their names. Dee, have you got any names of their farms?
Can't remember the names, but yes, there is one in Wales, and I think there are others across the country as well.
Very important. May they grow. And also recently became aware of Mothin, I think, who tweets from My Family Garden, and recently aware of his work because of the Twitter flurries around people like James Wong and himself saying that racism exists in gardening. And it's really important for us to remember that these are not uncontroversial things to say, but they're treated as if it's the worst possible thing. And there's been lots of examples of people talking about their own experiences in conservation, in outdoor spaces, and gardening and food growing is no exception. And we've been really overjoyed to connect with the folks at Aweside Farm. Been a couple of visits there this year and through different seasons, but Sinead and her partner Adam have been just really inspirational in terms of, being part of the Ecological Land Cooperative and facing extreme weather and challenges and setting up their own off-grid flower farm. Apologies that for any of the farms, I don't have the technical details of the business or number of hectares, acres, but all of these will have their own sites. Dee, any words of encouragement, affirmation for our friends at Aweside?
I would say keep it up. I'm thoroughly blown away by what you've both achieved in one season, and doing that with sort of natural water on the site, and being faced with all the elements and everything thrown at you. And I absolutely love both of you. You're both amazing, and you're a brilliant example to other young people who want to get into farming.
Absolutely. And both times that we visited, it's been with people who came to the first caucus that we've done. So it's just lovely opportunities to sort of keep the network growing, but also returning to previous sites, and making sure that we're supporting people with our labour where we can. And for so much of this year, we would have wanted to be visiting more projects, tree planting, and we hope that over the next year and the coming years that we're able to, give our support physically to the projects that are run by BPOC or supporting large groups of people of colour. This is at Jyoti's farm, which we were lucky enough to combine visits to LWA members based on an invite that we got at last year's LWA. And in this picture, there are Lion members, there are land justice activists, there are people who've been working on food and farming solidarity in various countries. And Jyoti has been able to do wonderful things in the last 20 years. And then it was also such a good thing to see how different the contexts are. Jyoti's quite honest about, okay, the auction where you could buy land and get the same, support from a bank or whatever has changed so much now. And so, thinking about what is possible over a long period of time and how the support might change, if that makes sense. Dee, got any thoughts? I'm sure you've been to Jyoti's lots of times. You're on mute.
I know. But I've only been to Jyoti's once. Actually, Jyoti and I spend more time in the pub sort of thinking about what can we do. How can we, open up farming to our young people? How can we break down those barriers, access to land, finance, education? That's where we do most of our thinking and co-creating. And I love you, Joe. You're my sister. And that's how we do things. All right, we're not necessarily in a classroom or around a board table. We sit around together with food and with drink, and we co-create.
Beautiful. Long may it continue. I hope you feel like the work that you've been putting in over the years is getting you to where we want to be. So in terms of solidarity, I mean, there's so many different land rights struggles around the world that we would love to know more about from people at the conference, and, thinking about where the web can spread out in terms of being aware of those and amplifying those struggles where we can. The bottom right picture is from a visit to the Anne Matthews Trust Breichgoch space, which is run by Javier and Maria. Javier speaking on Tuesday about decolonizing agriculture. And what was so beautiful about this coming together was the two people on the left and right are both rappers who are friends, friends of mine that didn't know each other before we all were in Machantleth, but both using music to talk about their land rights struggles. So Jazar, who's on the left, is from Palestine. Jota, who's on the right, is from Colombia, both of which, have experienced extreme displacement to their communities, and various struggles that they use music to talk about. And in terms of international solidarity, Javier has over many years been an inspiration from his work in London with young people with refugee backgrounds, and then in Colombia, and then in Wales, and both times in Colombia and Wales, showing how you can join a rural community who may not necessarily share your politics or racial justice principles, but showing how much you're willing to show up for them, and Javier, I salute you, this will be your third or fourth language, but, when you start speaking to people in Welsh, I'm very, very impressed. And then another thing that we're hoping to do this year is to be part of a film screening of the Toxification documentary, which will be coming out this year. And we co-hosted an event with the South Asian Care Collective to amplify the voices of people who are involved in the Indian farmer struggle. And there is so much for all of us to learn and support there. Any words, Dee?
That basically, we're beginning to get into what that solidarity looks like. We might be all from different places, but a common thread is that oppression, that colonization, and that seeking justice isn't the same. We might do it through different avenues, so using film and music. Some of us, like myself, a lot more political on one level, but also very grounded in the grassroots as well. But we need to learn how to cross those barriers of language and class and start breaking those down, because we are in a period of transformation. This chaos is transformation.
Very nice. Follow the Toxification doc profile on Instagram and look out for screenings throughout this year. And in terms of solidarity on a more personal, domestic level, one of the projects that we're running this year with the LWA, LGBTQIA plus group and Farmerama is about those different frontiers of justice and where they intersect. So I just pulled this from the proposal that we did back in August, but the resilience and solidarity across different frontiers of justice in practice for this project of cultivating justice is making podcasts and zines and running events. And I'm so excited to work with both of those organizations on trying to amplify not only BPOC voices in the farming and food growing world, but also LGBT QIA plus persons and Farmerama, who are the fantastic women-led team who've been keeping us guided nicely through ORFC, and to make sure that we all know about how to give that solidarity to the groups that we may belong to but may not. And, you know, how can we make sure that everyone's voices are uplifted and, you know, included. And then something which is quite personal and physically painful is that, I mean, between me and Dee, we might experience, you know, various days of ill health throughout the year, and thinking about who is it that can actually do the hefting, backbreaking work of farming. And that's something that affects every single identity, that farming is work, it is labor. And it's not something, I mean, that the physical health aspect can really create quite a lot of precarity in terms of it being something which is profitable or financially stable. And I'd really recommend people watch the Sundance Harvests talk, which is on Facebook and on Instagram, which is about farming with a disability. Dee, any thoughts?
Yeah, I had the honor of doing one of these live stream things with Cheyenne from Sundance Harvest earlier this year, and you know, she's absolutely amazing as a young person with multiple disabilities, literally farming by herself. And so many of us have hidden disabilities, from mental health to, you know, neurodivergence, um, as well as physical disabilities. And I think the intersectional aspects are often forgotten apart from sort of race, class, and gender. And we need to start bringing in things around age, around disability, around sexual orientation, and all the other intersections.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And personally, I would love for racial justice to no longer be a problem that I have to think about every day, and no longer be something which I have to put work into every day in order to focus on my own health and well-being and think about how I can farm and food grow in a way that's balanced. So, you know, so I'm not wearing the body out that may not have a lot of strength in it. And that's something that we should be preparing young people to think about a lot when they're going into growing. And yeah, finally, there's just some organizations that we wanted to shout out. There's so many more, so many initiatives, so many urban projects being set up that are, you know, about restoring that connection with nature. People of Colour in Nature, founded by Karen Larby, just fantastic hub that lots of people in the food and farming world who are people of colour use, and it's just really deserving of support. It has like a private group for BPOC, but then also a public page on Facebook that more people can support. All of these are on Instagram, I think, apart from Green and Black Ambassadors, which are based in Bristol. Black Girl Hike, Black Girls Camping, Flock Together World is a new one that is for bird watchers. who are people of colour. And, you know, this is just such a positive step, you know, that people can take the initiative and, you know, think, well, no one else is going to do it for us. And I mean, it points to a failing over a long period of time of the environment, conservation, all these different sectors that we have to do it ourselves. But I think, you know, these smaller initiatives mean that bigger change is coming, because it's not possible to ignore that disjunction. And as we heal our connections to living ecosystems, I don't know, a lot can come of it. Dee?
Yeah. And for the sessions that I have been able to watch over the last few days, there has been that running thread of people being able to reconnect to nature. And I think especially that is so important for us in the diaspora. I think I described myself in one chat as a dislocated and displaced African, because that's what I am. All right, enslavement sort of forced me to be in the Caribbean, born here of parents from the Caribbean. So, you know, dislocated, displaced, but yet I still belong. And it is my dear friend and horticulturalist, Claire Rassanon, who said we should dare to stand in the shadows of our ancestors and cultivate the land of their oppressors. And that's what we're doing, whilst also healing ourselves, healing land, healing each other. We need to heal those connections as human beings. We can't continue this extraction of people and of land and of nature. All right, it can't continue. All right, literally, as Mother Earth, Mother Earth is crying. Mother Earth is, yeah, Mother Earth is in pain. Mother Earth is crying, and I think for a lot of people, we are waking up to that. I think during this lockdown, so many people got into plants because somehow we needed that healing connection, right? And food as well. People were baking, people were cooking. And that is the power that food and land and the earth and plants have for healing. And we just need to step it up. We just need to step it up. We just need to come together now with that urgency to create, to co-create those communities, those socio-economic and food systems that we want, based on our traditional knowledge systems and practices, which we all have. We all have those, whether we're from Europe or Africa and Caribbean, we all have traditional practices that somehow have been lost to the modernity and to the industrial food complex. And part of agroecology for me is reclaiming that, decolonizing agriculture and decolonizing everything, so that we get back to who we really are as humans. Right? And that's what it is. You know, it's our humanness that connects us. Yeah.
Big words. Thank you. Thank you so much. So we're going to take some questions, but first we've got a video to show you. This one has sound. Tech.
I think it's really important for us to connect where we get our food from, the land that food is grown, to all of our struggles. So much power disparity is connected to who controls the land and who controls food. The problem is that majority of people who are like harvesting our food or growing our food, it's because of this relationship of exploitation, this unequal power dynamic that is a legacy of empire. We're not really taught to connect with plants. That knowledge is robbed of us because that knowledge is like self-sustaining. It grounds you, but then instead you're like funneled in school to become an obedient drone, to like join the workforce as an adult and to not question things, to be reliant upon the state and upon transactionary relationships rather than actually on like learning from your environment, from each other, supporting each other, living in a symbiotic way. And eating healthily is seen as a lifestyle choice for the wealthy rather than something that we should all have access to. The sad thing is that majority of people of color in this country don't have access to green spaces, don't have access to the countryside, and don't have access to locally grown produce. It's like, well, who are we allowing to benefit from like having nutritious, ecologically sustainable produce? It's like middle class people, and it's seen as like something that you can buy into, and if you can't afford that, you have to eat unhealthy fried foods or takeaways or like the vegetables that you get in supermarkets, which are just sad. I want the people I grew up with, people like me, you know, to also be able to have the opportunity to learn about growing in a way where you don't feel like an outsider, where you feel safe, where you can create a relationship with the plants, with the natural environment, and remember this is somewhere that should feel safe for us, somewhere that should be healing for us, and not something that we aren't entitled to. It's just messed up, this idea that black people don't farm or black people don't go into countryside or enjoy the woods or whatever, black people don't camp. That's all bullshit, you know? It's not, that's not the truth, that's the truth that they tell us, right? But it's not, it doesn't have to be real.
I love watching Sam. That's someone in our team who's also doing a traineeship currently in North London. Perfectly encapsulating what it is that we want to see more people being able to do, increasing opportunities, increasing vocational opportunities especially, and really changing the faces that can be seen as our horticulturalists, our farmers. Dee?
Yeah. Let's take some questions. Let's take some questions. You know, I think we're very clear about what needs to change. We need to dismantle those systems of oppression, and we need to be challenging power wherever it exists and centering the most affected and the most marginalized within every system that we have. Democracy, yeah, a true democracy.
What does that mean to you?
That we have a seat at the table, that we're also laying our own tables, that we are participating on every level in co-creating governance, in co-creating systems, in co-creating how we get our food, where we get our food, who produces our food, who cooks our food. All right, communities and people should be involved in every aspect of food systems and food governance, and not be dependent on top-down policies that mean that we have food apartheid, that our farmers aren't paid, that our farmers and food producers are ill and hungry, and you name it. Yeah.
There we go. I mean, you prescribed a lot of solutions there. So a technical question that came in, can this video be shared? I think not yet, but there's plans for the footage to come out in a sort of polished, cleaned up way. This was just put together so that we could show you a snippet of what we've been doing under challenging conditions in the last year. What supports you to be courageous and resilient under this system? Well, each other. I went home from the last ORFC, but in particular the BPOC caucus, and announced to my family that I was no longer an atheist because of the ability to connect with land in a spiritual way that wasn't afforded, because I feel like this country and the religion that goes with it is often quite disconnected from land in a way that I've not seen in other parts of the world. Yeah, a little bit of woo-woo never hurt anyone. And you've been a beacon of light in showing how West African, so that would be my ancestors, our ancestors, how spirituality can be used to talk about the stars and the moon and the sun, and how that would have guided a lot of land stewards pre-colonialism. What else has helped us be courageous and resilient?
I think, as you said, each other, and being able to find joy and celebrate and laugh and sing and dance, and just being human, just being able to not have to wear the warrior mantle all the time. Yeah, not having to get up every morning and go out and having to face a system, but to be with us and be with allies as well who understand, and just being able to be who we truly are.
Mm-hmm. Love it. So do you know of any groups for BPOC land workers in the UK to connect through? Well, we might know a couple, with Lion being one and the LWA BPOC group being another.
Yeah.
And we've tried to set up, I mean, not quite set up, but encourage people who are nearby to connect with each other. I'm really happy that Alice and Javier are presenting together on Tuesday, because they're both in Wales. We've got BPOC in Scotland that we've said, hey, you guys are in similar places, and there's offers of land use in Scotland that we're really grateful for. Dee?
Yeah. I think the groups and small community groups, emerging. There's the Land Workers Alliance, BPOC group, which is growing. And I think if you look, you will find, and there's also the African and Caribbean Heritage Food Network, and which connects people, not just land workers, but anyone involved in food, including eaters across the country and the Caribbean and Africa, and anywhere there's African heritage people, actually. Yeah.
Love it. Yeah, and that is like something that's been quite nice this year, of people that have asked, do you know of anything that's happening in my area? And sometimes, we don't, like Kettering will have to wait in terms of a BPOC hub. But like the Black Roots initiative that's up in North London, you know, that is a model that is absolutely fantastic. We're doing a project with them to try and emulate that model in different boroughs in London, given the, you know, spatial injustices that London in particular suffers. You know, it's really important that people are able to grow food in their communities that's like localized, and that's a word that you taught me, Dee, and really emphasizing the cultural appropriateness of food, and that's an expanding our imaginations of what can be grown here, which only can increase. Nice one. How is or could abolitionist thinking and practice be invoked in BIPOC people's ecological action? And this is quite a new one for me. Like, I didn't really know what the links between land justice and abolition, particularly prison abolition, was. But then a friend sent me away to listen to a podcast. Wish I could remember what her name was, but the podcast person. But thinking about how much land prisons take up, how unecological a prison would be. You know, what is the pollution? Like, who's the biggest polluters of all the, you know, world militaries? It can be quite hard to draw the links, but the more that we know about the biggest culprits, helps us in that. And I guess a lot of people have come to us over the past year, especially with the BLM news cycle, and that was a very exhausting time for the Lion team. Like, what more can we do? And the language being so much around, you know, diversity initiatives and, you know, how can we get the BAME in? And that actually, you know, for some of us, it's a deeply personal and painful topic that may involve, you know, our experiences with the prison industrial complex, the school to prison pipeline, and, you know, interactions with the police that put us at risk, and knowing that for our communities, it goes so much further than hiring a face, so much further than bringing in a consultant. Dee?
Yeah, or doing sort of this personalized training. Yes, you know, it is good to start with yourself and to examine your own biases, but unconscious bias training does not dismantle systems of oppression. You have to do the anti-racist equity work. And if you look, there are so many resources, so many people doing that work, from the Racial Justice Network in the north of England, to many US organizations, but abolitionists work or thinking for me is liberation thinking and practice, and it's already happening within sort of ecological action with climate justice, which includes racial justice. So we have Wretched of the Earth as a collective of people of color doing that work here in the UK. And I think people need to seek. It is happening. We have people out here. We just need to build. We just need to grow. We just need to put aside that fear. And that's one of the things I learned from Vandana Shiva many, many years ago. That work we're doing doesn't involve the corporations and whatever else. We are above that. Work we are doing is to a higher order. So we can't do that from a place of fear. We have to do that from a place of love for our people and for our earth and for our ecology, for our nature, Right? We are communities of care, as Michael Factory said on Thursday. We are co-creating communities of care, and that care includes the earth. And I was so happy to have my hands in this earth with this plant, because that is what a lot of us are missing. Living in cities, urbanization literally is killing us. An industrialized world literally is killing us. But yeah, look out. We have a lot of resources online. And I'm sure we'll be putting up similar on Land Workers Alliance as well, and other spaces, but we are out there.
Absolutely. Can we, we'd love to hear more questions, particularly inviting people from the Global South. I acknowledge that there's some discussion in the chat about use of terms to talk about racial identities, ethnicities. My bottom line is that there's no perfect term under white supremacy, and so as long as we're all doing the work that we should be doing to abolish white supremacy and challenge fascism wherever we see it, for some people that will be in their own families, for some people it's in workplaces, but there will be no perfect term that we can use.
Yeah. All right. And in an ideal world, we don't want to have those terms, right? We don't want to, be categorized by a race. And I think that's part and work of abolition and liberation, to dismantle race, to dismantle whiteness, and that I could just refer to myself as me.
The wonderful being that you are. Yeah, absolutely. And in terms of we're not responsible for the exclusion that exists within the sectors that we're working in. We're not responsible for the lack of representation or the celebration of the Black and brown food growers that we are working with and championing. And we will use the terms that we can, which feel the most celebratory, and acknowledge that they won't be necessarily resonating with everyone.
Yeah.
And, language evolves. And so does racism, which is unfortunate. Yeah. Okay, nice things coming through. Does climate change consider the Black and brown peeps mining minerals for wind turbines? How do they grow food when soil is stolen by mass mining for lithium? That's a massive area, isn't it? Miners, rights of miners, and that's much more prevalent in countries in the global south. The Green New Deal is not something that Lion is particularly involved in working on in the British context. Dee?
Yeah. Or climate change. We prefer to say climate justice, the industrial food system, as well as how the global north lives, is the major driver for climate change. So do we need to have new phones every year? All right. I think just as people, we need to accept some responsibility to what happens elsewhere. I think that's one of the best ways we can support our brothers and sisters in Global South, is to see how we're impacting the earth and change that.
Yeah. And on that note of not having a new phone every year, I suffer a terrible camera on my Fairphone and low battery constantly because of trying not to. But yeah, Fairphone's terrible. What moves you and inspires your work? What energizes you? Anything from ORFC so far? So much at ORFC. Come on. There was Naima Penniman. There was your session. There's Haido today.
Oh, sorry. I'm reading last one with a different.
There was a paragraph about XR. We'll come to that.
Yeah.
So much from ORFC, and so much that I'm yet to catch up on. And at the same time as this session is Guru's session about the Street Goat project. And hearing from Naima last night, Sylvan Aqua Farms, who just bang on so many different things. Thank you so much, Chris. Dee.
I mean, I wish I could go to every session. I've seen how, ORFC has evolved. The organizers listen. They push, they challenge, and I just want to be at everything. And I'm so, glad that we have so many people from the Global South here and talking about their issues and talking about solutions and talking about how we in Global North can support the Global South, because that's the only way it will happen. We cannot dismantle any of these oppressive structures if our politics are based on sort of market-based social change. And that's coming back to that sort of Green New Deal and green economy, but nothing will ever change unless we are holding all our politicians to account. And I don't think we're really very good at doing that in the Global North, and particularly when it comes to holding them to account for these legacies of empire and colonialism and the current colonialism. But it's coming back to that thing of fear. All right, we need to overcome that, and we need to be talking, we need to be seen, we need to be heard, we need to be shouting. All right, we need to be holding our governments to account. We need to be holding these business leaders to account. All right, we cannot continue. We cannot continue like this. For me, I want to be a good ancestor. My children, my children's children, all children yet to come. I owe them that. To leave them with a world better than one that I've come into.
Too right. Should we tackle the one about XR in a minute or less? I don't want to give it much more time than that. XR has come under a lot of criticism for not taking a social justice and intersectional approach to climate change activism. I believe that there's so many different branches of XR. XR Youth really got good people in it. So I've seen XR International Solidarity, really clear on reparations. I think that, there can be benevolent, malevolent actors within a movement, and something that just springs up out of nowhere and gets loads of money and has some people that really want to be the face of, getting people arrested. That is just not something that Black people will ever be signing themselves up for, and quite right, because that is deadly on a lot of occasions.
Exactly.
And I've been asked about XR and working with them and, what we should do so many times, but I think there's a lot of people coming out of XR or having gone through it that I've got time for. And I think that there are people that have been doing the work for decades. And the main thing that XR should be doing is amplifying their voices.
Exactly. I mean, so many people in Global South have been doing the work. We're talking 30 odd years doing the work, and yet still remain invisible. All right. And it still comes back to who has the money, who has the power, who has the connections. Yeah. So not a big fan of XR as a whole. You know, they've bought into this entire market-based green solution thing. I don't feel it's a place for me. All right, and especially, you know, with that whole yes, we'll go to prison thing, and yeah, not for me. Not for me.
Me neither. So this is a nice one. This might be the one that we finish on. What is one hope or one thing you'd like to achieve with the Lion team and the overall movement this year? I want to keep seeing projects being started that put the needs of BPOC communities, food and care, health at their centre. I want to see food growing projects which can be hubs for political organising, as they have been in the American South, the United States South, and in South Africa. Winnie Mandela talked a lot about that. Thinking about the farm as a site of education that's beyond just learning how to grow a tomato. When that day comes, I will weep with joy.
As someone who doesn't really bind themselves by sort of time, and I just flow, you know, I think what I would like to achieve, and it would be ongoing, you know, building on what Josina says, is we need more people, all right? And I think that's our sort of goal, to bring more people with us, to bring the grassroots with us, all right, to enable people to, you know, have their own voice. You know, neither of us should be speaking on behalf of people, all right? We should be supporting people to be able to speak for themselves, so that we become this wonderful, loud choir of voices asking for the same thing. That's what I want to see. And it might take days, it might take weeks, it might take a year, who knows? I'm just flowing. I'm just flowing, and it will happen. I know it will happen. It's happened before. It will happen.
That's a good moment to end, I think.
Yeah.
It's our time. Thank you so much for tuning in, everyone.